That shocking Star Trek, The Next Generation cameo in Strange New Worlds Season 3 Episode 2 explain. Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3 is already shaping up to be one of the most daring and nostalgia-packed seasons in the modern Trek era. But Episode 2 has officially blown the doors wide open, delivering a jaw-dropping cameo from a Star Trek, The Next Generation legend that not only thrilled longtime fans, but also redefined the show's place in the wider Trek timeline. The episode, titled Children of the Continuum, doesn't just dip into TNG nostalgia, it boldly resurrects one of Star Trek's most enigmatic figures in a way that could have huge consequences for the galaxy. So, what exactly happened? How did the cameo come about? And what does it mean for the future of Strange New Worlds and the entire franchise? Let's break it down, and yes, we're talking about Q. The return of Q, but not as you remember. Yes, that Q. The immortal trickster played so memorably by John D. Lancey made a shocking appearance in the final moments of Strange New Worlds Season 3, Episode 2. However, this wasn't a simple nostalgia cameo or timeline gag. The episode subtly built toward it, from the mysterious cosmic anomalies surrounding the USS Enterprise to Captain Pike's unnerving visions of alternate futures, before the revelation that an omnipotent being was pulling the strings. When Q finally appeared, it wasn't in the usual godlike flash of light or smug omniscient tone. Instead, he appeared weakened, curious, almost reflective. His first line, "You humans never learn, do you?" echoed his words to Picard decades later in Star Trek, Picard Season 2, but there was a tonal shift. This Q wasn't here to torment or test. He was here to warn. The episode establishes that Q has been observing humanity long before his infamous first encounter with Jean-Luc Picard in the Next Generation's pilot, Encounter at Farpoint. His sudden reappearance in Pike's timeline suggests that his fascination with Starfleet's moral evolution and its flaws stretches back much further than anyone realized. How Q fits into Strange New Worlds timeline. On the surface, Q's arrival in Strange New Worlds seems impossible. The series is set roughly 100 years before the Next Generation, which means Q is appearing far earlier than his canonical first appearance to humanity. But the episode cleverly sidesteps this issue. In his conversation with Pike and Spock, Q claims that time is irrelevant to beings like him. "You think linearity is a chain, Captain Pike? I see it as a toy," he teases, smirking in a familiar way. "You humans always assume the story starts when you arrive." This line suggests that the Q continuum has always existed outside of conventional time, and Q himself may have chosen to observe humanity at different points in its evolution, or even test earlier crews before Picard's. In essence, his games with Pike could be seen as the prologue to his more famous trial of humanity in TNG. In fact, there's a strong implication that the trial Q puts humanity through in the Next Generation wasn't the first, nor the last. This episode reveals that the Continuum has been monitoring the Federation's expansion for centuries, and that Pike's Enterprise is being judged for the potential consequences of Starfleet's moral hubris. Thematically, it fits perfectly. While it might seem like a crossover cameo designed to please fans, Q's inclusion is actually a brilliant thematic move by the Strange New Worlds writers. The series has always explored the tension between idealism and realism in Starfleet's mission. Captain Pike's story, in particular, is rooted in foreknowledge of his tragic fate and his struggle to make meaning out of it. By introducing Q, a being who literally transcends time, the show has found the perfect character to confront Pike with the philosophical implications of his choices. Q challenges Pike not with riddles or judgment, but with perspective. "You already know how your story ends," he says, "but have you ever asked why it ends that way?" This line forces Pike and viewers to reconsider his destiny not as a burden, but as part of a cosmic narrative, one that even omnipotent beings find fascinating. Moreover, Q's reappearance gives Strange New Worlds a chance to explore one of Star Trek's most enduring questions. Is humanity ready for godhood? The show has flirted with this idea before through characters like Lon Noonien Singh and her genetic heritage, or Number One's secret alien identity, but Q's intervention puts it front and center. How Q's role differs from the Next Generation. When Q tormented Picard, his methods were performative, trials, courtroom metaphors, and flamboyant tests of character. But with Pike, his tone is different. There's a somberness to this version of Q, one that reflects the evolution of his character across multiple series. This Q appears weary of omnipotence, perhaps even regretful. He's still mischievous, but not cruel. There's a sense that the continuum itself is fracturing, and that Q is searching for meaning, something Picard Season 2 hinted at but didn't fully resolve. In one haunting exchange, Q tells Spock, "Logic is a fine prison, Mr. Spock. But even in a cage of reason, the universe can still surprise you." It's classic Q wordplay, part riddle, part truth. But it also mirrors Spock's own arc in Strange New Worlds, where his half-human identity has become increasingly central to his growth. By speaking to both Pike and Spock, Q serves as a bridge between the original crew's idealism and the moral complexity of the next generation. A possible connection to the Gorn and the space god thread. At first, Q's return seems disconnected from the season's main arc involving the Gorn and their escalating threat to the Federation. But Episode 2 hints that these storylines might be connected. When Pike accuses Q of interfering in Starfleet's affairs, Q replies cryptically, "Do you think you're the only predators learning how to evolve?" A line delivered with typical Q flair could suggest that the Gorn, long portrayed as a primitive, brutal species, might be on the verge of their own evolutionary leap. This ties back to the original series' tradition of space gods, immensely powerful beings who challenge humanity's arrogance. Strange New Worlds seems to be blending that legacy with modern Trek's serialized storytelling, turning Q's cameo into a pivot point for the season. If Q is warning Pike about the consequences of humanity's unchecked expansion, the Gorn could represent the mirror image of that, a species evolving rapidly, testing the same moral boundaries in their own way. What it means for Star Trek's future, Q's appearance in Strange New Worlds Season 3 doesn't just thrill fans, it quietly rewrites Star Trek canon in a fascinating way. By showing that Q was aware of and perhaps influenced by earlier Starfleet captains, the franchise establishes a cosmic continuity that bridges the different eras of Trek. It suggests that Q's fascination with humanity isn't limited to Picard. He's been watching all along, intrigued by how humans keep choosing compassion over control, exploration over domination. This also opens the door for more cross-era storytelling. If Q can traverse time freely, there's no reason we couldn't see him appear in Discovery's far future or even interact with Lower Decks characters in more serious ways. It's a storytelling device that both honors Trek's legacy and gives it flexibility moving forward. The cameo's real-world significance. Behind the scenes, John D. Lancey's cameo marks a major moment for Star Trek's interconnected storytelling. D. Lancey last appeared as Q in Picard Season 2, seemingly ending his arc with a heartfelt farewell to Jean-Luc. His return here suggests that Strange New Worlds isn't afraid to borrow from across Trek's rich history, but it does so with thematic purpose, not cheap fan service. Showrunner Akiva Goldsman hinted in interviews that Season 3 would blend mythology and morality in unexpected ways, and Q's reappearance is exactly that. It's not a stunt, it's a statement that the boundaries between the different Trek series are dissolving, allowing the franchise to feel unified again. Could we see Q again? Given how the episode ends, with Q vanishing after telling Pike, "The trial never ends, Captain. It just changes faces. It's almost certain this isn't the last we'll see of him." That line perfectly encapsulates what Strange New Worlds does best: honor the past while expanding its meaning. The trial of